Mena Aisatu Smaisise and to the Fair Network Day you building concerning the government press briefing where the Ministry of Information and Communication can get every Thursday. And inside the press briefing today we forget the Minister from Agriculture, and also we get a team from NACOVAC where they can tell with the measures where NACOVAC don't put in place concerning the second wave where Salon they experienced during the COVID-19.
Amen. Amen. I'll now invite the Deputy Minister of Information and Communications to take us through the update and later introduce our speakers for today.
Good afternoon, Minister of Defense and Coordinator of NACOVAC, Brigadier Retired Califonte, Minister of Agriculture, Acting Minister of Agriculture, Abubakar Karim, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this every Thursday press briefing held here at the Ministry of Information's conference room. As always, we start with the updates for the day. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has invited member states to a high-level replenishment conference for the Level Peace Building Fund and to mobilize critical support for conflict prevention and peace building. President Julius Maada Bio is expected to virtually join the Secretary General on January 26, 2021 to co-chair the meeting alongside His Excellency Abdullah Adam Hamdok, Prime Minister of the Republic of Sudan, His Excellency Mark Gano, Foreign Minister of Canada and Chair of the Peace Building Commission, and His Excellency Heiko Maas, Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Germany. The aim of the replenishment conference is to counter the persistent underinvestment in peace building and provide timely, catalytic and risk-tolerant instruments with more adequate, predictable and sustained resources to support national peace-building efforts in more than 40 countries around the world. President Bio's leadership on this global issue is in recognition of Sierra Leone's inspiring achievements in the consolidation of peace and national cohesion, as well as appreciation of our experience as former country configuration of the UN Peace Building Commission, says Dr. Ali Kaba, Sierra Leone's permanent representative to the United Nations. Vice President Dr. Mohamed Jul Diallo on Tuesday 19th January 2021 in a dialogue meeting held at the Frobe College campus asked lecturers of the University of Sierra Leone for shared responsibility to the students and people of Sierra Leone. He informed them to look at the prevailing realities and show understanding, saying governments cannot afford 100% increase of their salaries now, but assured them of 25% increments effective April this year. The Honorable Vice President, while pleading with the striking lecturers, reminded them that these are extraordinary times, with the COVID-19 pandemic having a serious toll on the country's economy with huge loss of revenue in 2020. Even though our economy is facing huge challenges, we have ensured as a government to do a 25% salary increase for lecturers, as well as progressively increased subventions to universities, he underscored. The Ministry of Transport and Aviation on Tuesday 19th January 2021 held a consultative meeting with the Ministry of Information and Communications, the National Telecoms Commission (NATCOM), representatives of telecommunications company and utility companies in the conference room of the Ministry of Information and Communications. The meeting sought to inform service providers about the Integrated Resilient Urban Mobility Project (IROM), how it will impact their work and the roles they are expected to play during implementation of the project. The IROM is a $50 million World Bank funded project that aims to modernize the current informal transport sector as well as improve the quality of life for all. A combined team comprising engineers from SALCAB and staff from the Ministry of Information and Communications has visited the ECOWAS Regional Backbone Infrastructure and Governance and the Sierra Leone National Fiber Backbone NFB-1 project sites across the country. The purpose of this visit was to verify project assets and test all equipment at the respective sites nationwide in a bid to ascertain their current status before finally handing them over to the new company that will continue the project implementation following the unbundling of SALCAB. The team did a thorough assessment of the effectiveness of past and current projects implemented by SALCAB as well as the effectiveness of the fiber cable links between sites, among others. A total of 22 sites were visited. Right, that's all we have as updates for today. Like I mentioned earlier, we have in our meeting this afternoon the coordinator of NACOVAC, who is also the Minister of Defense here this afternoon. He's here with his team. As you may be aware, Sierra Leone had accomplished a milestone as the only the second country in Africa and the fifth globally to do an intra-action review on the COVID-19 response. Since September 2020, only 5 countries have conducted intra-action review on the COVID-19 response. This shows that Sierra Leone is a country that takes public health issues seriously, and we have seen a great deal of commitment from the government of Sierra Leone to achieve this. Now you remember that there is a task force in place that does periodic review on the COVID situation in Sierra Leone. Just a few days ago, the Presidential Task Force took a decision based on a periodic review of the COVID situation in the country based on science and data. And a decision has been made, and like we promised the public, at every step we need to take certain decisions. You'll be duly informed, which is why this afternoon we have the coordinator of NACOVAC, Brigadier Retired Kelly Conte, to talk to the public through this press conference. We invite you now, sir, to take the podium.
Thank you. Colleague ministers present, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. May I first start by asking, please, for us to wear our masks properly, since we're in a closed environment. I see some of you having it on your chin. It is meant actually for your face. Cover both your nose and your mouth, please. It is important that we do so at all times when we are in closed environments. The simple reason you do not want to transmit any virus should you have one. I'm here, like I said already, by the Deputy Minister of Information to read a statement following the Presidential Task Force meeting on Tuesday. Now, Sierra Leone is in the 43rd week of the coronavirus outbreak, with 3,051 cumulative confirmed positive cases so far, as at yesterday. As declared by the Director General of the West Africa Health Organization during the 85th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers recently, our sub-region is now experiencing the second phase of COVID-19, a second wave, and I think we've experienced it here. The Fourth Estate have been talking about it, writing about it, but indeed it's confirmed that indeed we are on the second wave. And since December last year, and largely attributable to the festive season, we have seen an exponential rise in laboratory confirmed cases in Sierra Leone. For example, 194 cases were recorded between December 1st to December 30th. Inbound passengers accounting for 8% of that, departure passengers accounting for 22% of that, and our routine tests accounting for 52% respectively. Now that indicates obviously that we have more cases within our communities. Between December 1st and January 18th, positive cases from routine tests and outbound passengers alone total 70% of the confirmed positive cases, still confirming that we do have community spread of the virus as at now. Our nation took appropriate measures to keep COVID-19 in check during the first wave, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me, that our collective efforts together with the public ensure that we maintain a very low case load well into our response. We must, with renewed vigor, however, and extra vigilance, pull together as one nation to address this second wave. Consequently, as directed by the Presidential Task Force, I hereby announce the following measures, which shall come into effect on Monday, 25th January, for a period of 2 weeks, subject to review. All of these have been informed by the virus, by the data we have, and the assessments that have been made by our technical team. 1. A partial lockdown of Western area with vehicular restriction in and out of Western area generally to be regulated by an electronic pass system. During this lockdown period of Western area, a massive surge testing will be conducted. Now, I want to explain this a little bit. The lockdown is simply a restriction of movement outside of the Western area. In other words, restricting Western area for vehicular traffic outside of it and into it. Obviously, essential services will be maintained outside of the Western area. Number 2, night curfew will be reintroduced nationwide from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily, again for within those 2 weeks. Restaurants and bars shall not operate during weekends, and clubs remained banned entirely. Places of worship shall hold services for not more than 1.5 hours. In other words, we are reverting to the short prayer periods that were allotted during the first phase. Where more than one service may be conducted in any prayer house or worship places of worship, there shall be a thorough IPC cleaning at intervals. In other words, if you want to hold 2 or 3 services in one particular house of worship, after your first prayer, which would last not more than 90 minutes, you must disinfect the entire facility before the next session of prayers. This is all in a bid to keep the virus away from the public. Lifting of ban on sports remains in force, but all sporting activities must be conducted behind closed doors. In other words, we lifted bans recently on football matches, but we still ask them to do so behind closed doors. Number 6, mandatory wearing of face masks in public premises and especially public transportations. Defaulters shall be fined heavily. And here I need to re-emphasize the issue of wearing of masks. I'm sure the Fourth Estate, members of the press, you've done your own homework. I'm sure you've been doing quite a lot of reading and assessment and observing what is happening worldwide. Face masks have been proven to be very, very helpful, very, very useful to help stop the transmission of the virus. Especially so when you are in closed environments, face mask does help to stop the transmission of the virus. And we are asking for people to simply comply. Now, we observed the whole of last year, you find compatriots who rather prefer not to comply and want to circumvent the processes, go through relatives in high places later on to beg for them simply to perpetuate the non-compliance of these measures. I'm sure as good citizens, this is a simple task to do. You're doing so not only for yourselves, but you're also doing so for the general public. You owe it to all of us to wear your face mask. And so we are urging all of us again, please wear your face masks when you are in public places, especially in congested places like indoors like this. And if you are in podas, minibuses, buses, please wear your face masks. It's easily transmittable in those kinds of environments. And some of the cases that have been picked up comes from people who fly with these transports most often. We are appealing to you, instead of going around later on to call relatives to come and beg for you not to be fined, I think it's easier. Just wear it. Just wear it. I'm appealing to you to do so, please, at all times. Because we are determined to ensure that we enforce these measures more stringently this time. Now, if we don't come to you, if we don't get onto you, that doesn't mean the enforcement is not taking place. We will continue to do so vigorously in the interest of all of us. Now, the seventh one, meetings and other activities of ministries, departments, and agencies shall incorporate COVID-19 prevention messages and compliance. In other words, we are requesting, the PTF is directing all MDAs to incorporate in any events they have, public events they have, to incorporate some kind of messaging to sensitize the audience on COVID matters. Basically, to remind people that indeed COVID is around and COVID kills. And if we all want to get this thing behind us as quickly as possible, let us simply comply with these very, very simple measures. The washing of hands, we know in some environments may be difficult because we do not have water, perhaps, or hand sanitizers. But believe you me, if you keep on your face mask, you would have done all of us very good. Now, NACOVAC is working assiduously to strengthen test regimes at land border points of entry. We want to do so quickly, and we're hoping that we'll get the rapid test kits as quickly as possible so that we could deploy them in our border entry points. This is also for the same reason, to ensure that people who bypass the processes that have been set up already at the airport and choose to come through our land borders go through the same regime of testing. This is an extremely difficult moment for our country, but together we can curtail the spread of COVID-19 and maintain the successes we have made so far. I call on all of us to continue remembering the souls that have succumbed to this disease, as well as praying for our dedicated men and women in the fight against COVID-19. COVID is real. COVID is here with us. Many people are still in denial, but please do not follow those ones who want to take COVID virus, lightly. People have been infected. People have died. It may not have affected your own family, but many people have lost loved ones. many continue to lose loved ones. Let us please believe that indeed COVID is real. God bless our fight against COVID-19. God bless Sierra Leone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And just to recognize the presence of a team from NACOVAC, we have the spokesperson here, Solomon Jamiru. We have the technical coordinator, Professor Fudisa, Victor S.O.B. Davis, Western Rural District Coordinator, Professor S.M. Givao, Pillar Lead for Labs, Group Captain Hassan Kumba, Operations Pillar Lead, and Harold Williams, Risk Communications Lead. I also saw Madam Meata French also in here. So they're all here this afternoon to answer to as many questions as you may have or clarify issues that you want clarifications on. We move on this afternoon. We also have in our midst the Acting Minister of Agriculture, Abu Bakar Karim, is here with us this afternoon, like I mentioned. In furtherance to presidentbio's commitment to rice production and increased agricultural productivity in Sierra Leone, the Ministry of Agriculture held an inception workshop and technical launch of the Regional Rice Value Chain Project in Bo on the 15th and 16th of January 2021. In attendance at the two-day workshop were stakeholders, cabinet ministers and sector players involved in rice production in Sierra Leone. The Tomabom project is largely funded by Islamic Development Bank, Badia and the government of Sierra Leone. It is a 5-year project worth $34 million and will be implemented in Samu and Mambalu chiefdoms in Cambia district and Tomabom in Bo district. Actual work is expected to start before mid-2021. Also, this morning, His Excellency the President inspected 410 tractors, 2,410 implements procured by the Ministry of Agriculture. This equipment will be distributed to interested private sector players using a public-private partnership model. The government of Sierra Leone has also put aside $50 million as funding for private sector lending to aid agriculture. All these plus much more are geared towards addressing food self-sufficiency, a key manifesto promise of His Excellency the President. Acting Minister of Agriculture Bakar Karim is here this afternoon as usual to update the press on developments in the sector. Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much. Colleague ministers present here, members of the Fourth Estate, thank you for having me. I think this is probably the first press briefing from the ministry. So you're all welcome. The Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry remains committed to implementing its key priorities, that is rice self-sufficiency, crop diversification, livestock development, sustainable forest, and biodiversity, as articulated in the National Agricultural Transformation Program, the NAT 2023. The global pandemic has affected food systems globally. Therefore, the ministry's efforts for conducting planting season was focused on intensifying staple crops, a part of the QUERP local food production pillar, to mitigate food shortages in the country. The effect and others contributed to the following result highlighted below. Key achievements so far. The ministries and partners directly supported the cultivation of 6,004 hectares of rice in lowland ecologies to produce approximately 16,282.5 metric tons of paddy rice as part of achieving Human Capital Development annual target. Furthermore, the ministry supported the cultivation of 300 hectare vegetables, 300 hectare roots and tubers, that is cassava, sweet potatoes, etc., etc., and 100 hectares of groundnut and green legumes. To intensify mechanical land preparation, that is plowing, harrowing, and seed harrowing, and improve accessibility to smallholder farmers, the ministry piloted a private sector-led tractor service provider model. Thus, more arable land was put under cultivation. In collaboration with the Vietnamese rice specialist team, the ministry is multiplying 25 metric tons of foundation seeds at Kobia and Mangibure to produce 2,250 metric tons of certified seeds for this year, 2021 planting sector season. A total of 162 kilometers of feeder roads connecting high-producing areas to market have been rehabilitated in 6 districts. These districts are Potloko, Tokolili, Moyamba, Kono, Kailaung, and Bond. This aims to promote access to market for smallholder farmers. Government has also attracted $54 million commercial rice project investment from the Emiratis, that is the Elite Agro, located at the Rombe, that is Potloko district. This investment will contribute significantly towards our 86% rice sufficiency target. And for your information, that the team is already here and they've started their surveillance. They've already completed the Rombe and Kumaba Mamila, which they are doing 500 hectares for the military. So that's a welcome news. They will now be starting with Tomabom as well. So then furthermore, as the government seeks to increase export of cash crop, the ministry has done the following to intensify the cash crop production. Contracted Jala University to establish 540 pre-germinated seedlets of oil palm nursery for the establishment of 3,000 hectare new plantations. Supported slurries to establish 15 hectares of improved cocoa seedlings in the 4 establishment of 1,500 hectares of new cocoa farms. Established clonal gardens with 5,000 polyclonal cashew seeds. Now, it will be interesting to know that the last soil survey that was done in this country was in 1979. So we've moved forward to support farmers across the country so that they can have uniform and not reflected variation in soil types and consistencies. Therefore, the National Soil Survey is ongoing to know the state of our soils, which will serve as a guide to effectively use fertilizers and improve productivity. Now, our plans for this year, 2021, under the new direction, we are taking a policy shift from a direct government-led support system to smallholder farmers to a private sector-led integrated input management system. The policy shift will improve private sector participation in the sector and minimize the previous system's inefficiency while leveraging technology for better accountability. To this end, government has made the following commitments. Credit facility, number 1, credit facility to stimulate private sector activity. To make this plan into reality, the government has committed to extend $50 million credit facility for the private sector to access to invest in the following areas: fertilizer imports, mechanization and processing equipment, and also seed production and distribution and agrochemicals. Those are pesticides and herbicides. The first $10 million will be available on the 1st of February for the private sector. Modalities for accessing the credit facility will be shared to the public soon. We're also pre-positioning agricultural machineries for lease to the private sector. The government has made an initial investment in procuring these machines, like the Honorable Deputy Minister just intimated, we've procured 410 tractors, 2,410 equipments, and then 200 power tillers. And these are machines to lease to private sector to kickstart mechanization services in the country. The machines will be used to establish at 7 mechanization service centers. We'll be calling them machine rings across the country. The fleet of machinery will be pre-positioned and is estimated to worth $18 million, which the government have actually spent to procure them. Direct support to farmers through e-voucher system for input and mechanization services will be undertaken as well. And that is to stimulate demand. The government has further committed through 2021 annual budget outlay, another $5.5 million as direct support to vulnerable farmers to access and afford agricultural input through an e-voucher system. The support will target an initial cohort of 30,000 farm households across the country for a period of 3 years. Modernization of the agricultural advisory services through e-extension service is also another area that we've also done a lot of work. At the current national average, rice yield stands at 1.68 tons per hectare. Quality inputs and mechanization alone will not be enough to get the country closer to the various rice yield potential ecologies. The government has committed another $300,000 to strengthen e-extension service, including establishing an e-extension platform serving the selected cohort of farmers to raise yields and enhancing market linkages and other agricultural services. In addition to these fiscal commitments, the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, has already put the necessary policies and regulatory bodies in place to support the private sector shift, specifically the National Fertilizer Regulatory Agency, the National Fertilizer Regulatory Policy, the Seed Policy, and the Sierra Leone Seed Certification Agency Act of 2018. These regulatory bodies are now being staffed up, and infrastructures such as modern laboratories erected to regulate the industry. Also, the government will embark on a rapid onion production project to minimize the high importation of onion into the country. It will be a 16-hectare pilot project in 4 districts: Kwenadugu, Potloko, Moyamba, and Falaba, for which the government has committed 6.34 billion leones. An additional $1.1 million has been committed by IFT to scale up this project. The $11.9 million Sierra Leone Agribusiness and Rice Value Chain project based in Moyamba has also commenced the implementation and will support the seed sectors to revitalize and partner with Jala University to enable youth projects. The $34.1 million rice value chain, regional rice value chain, which the minister already made mention about, for Tomabum and Cambia, will actually go into support 7,000 farmers in Tomabum and 2,000 in Cambia, and a total of 35,000 hectares will be put under cultivation. Lastly, the ministry will support the rehabilitation of strategic ferry crossings points in specific location. Feasibility studies on the way, and site selection have been done. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I take the opportunity on behalf of NACOVAC to say thank you to my dear sister and colleague, Deputy Minister of Information, and your brother Mohammed for the beautiful work you continue to do as principal government's mouthpiece. And just to use the opportunity to say, in the room we have our Chief of Staff, Larry Bassi, is here with us. Pillar Lead for IPC, Christiana Kalon, is here with us. Our dear Coordinator, Western Area Urban, Miata French, is here. Harold Thomas, Lead for Risk Communication. We're here with our Technical Coordinator, Brigadier Professor Fodesa. We're here with our Operations Lead, Group Captain Kumba. Western Area Rural Coordinator Davis is also here, and perhaps some others I would not name at this point. So we stand ready, willing and able to respond to crucial questions emanating from the report, the information on the new wave. So I would endeavor to answer to questions, and my colleagues and friends will be on the sidelines to come up as and when it is necessary. So whether the second wave is derived from the new strain, technical coordinator would be pleased to speak to that. We know within our bilateral relationship with our friends from the People's Republic of China, some very strong attempts at sequencing the new strain virus, and the positive cases we have here are underway and well advanced to confirm scientifically whether the cases that we are having, especially as informed by the new wave, has anything to do with the new strain, the variant coronavirus. On restrictions, somebody was asking what about the livelihoods of people. We all know that within the context of the fight against coronavirus, we have always tried to maintain a very fine but delicate balance between saving lives and sustaining livelihoods. We cannot sustain livelihoods, we cannot make economic gains, we will not continue to bolster personal and household incomes if we don't get the public health context right. Even within the broader context of the economic outlook for West Africa and Africa, Sierra Leone, for example, the projection was that our economic growth was to contract by 2.2%. We listened to the Minister of Finance when he presented his statement of financial and economic policies. We know fully well the outline of the negative impact COVID-19 has had even on the economy of Sierra Leone. So yes, we are very much concerned about personal, family, and the economy of Sierra Leone, but it is important that we continue to prioritize public health, and that is why we'll continue to invest time, energy, and resources to make sure that we keep COVID-19 in check and ultimately to secure the dividend of eliminating it from Sierra Leone. And we believe this is the same ambition for other countries around the world, and we continue to pray for one another. So yes, we're very much mindful, even with respect to the restrictions for the new wave. We know the impact, we know the enormous social and personal discomfort all of us as Sierra Leoneans would have to go through, but this is the price that we have to pay just so that we are able to surmount this. What advice, if any, is the spokesman giving to the political class? For us at NACOVAC and our friends in the DICOVACs, we don't believe that anybody is above or beyond accountability. So I'll give you a few examples. I was personally in the House of Parliament at the time when they were debating the appropriation bill. I was in the House of Parliament when the Speaker of Parliament and the clerk graciously gave NACOVAC a slot, and we used that opportunity to challenge members of Parliament. We told them that some of the risk perception surveys are strongly indicating lack of role modeling, especially from our political class and key public officials. And we asked them to join us in that campaign, and as some symbolism, NACOVAC was able to make a very modest donation of face masks, alcohol-based hand sanitizers, etc. And we are so pleased by the kind of goodwill and the kind of gestures that we generated from the House of Parliament. Also, the very last cabinet sitting before the Christmas season, we used the opportunity to do a very key presentation to cabinet ministers, including His Excellency the President and the Honorable Vice President, and indeed we are enjoying that very fine solidarity. So if we see some instances of very large gatherings, of social events, some of which would have attracted the participation of members of the political class, that does not mean NACOVAC is in any way sparing them. We'll continue our message to what you may wish to call grassroots or ordinary Sierra Leoneans would be the same tone that will continue to accord even the political class. And we'll continue to we'll use this opportunity to talk to all and sundry, Sierra Leoneans, high and low, wherever you are. All of us, the message is for all of us. We don't want a situation where it would appear we are setting one standard for a group of Sierra Leoneans and set a totally separate and distinct standard for others. So for us at NACOVAC, we believe that nobody is above or beyond accountability. Why did you wait until now to take the new measures? We have been doing extremely fine. So even when it pleased the U.S. Centers for Disease Control to have said, listed Sierra Leone amongst 4 African countries considered to be low risk, our reaction at that point, when that announcement was made, was that we accept it, but with cautious satisfaction. If we look at the epidata that informed the scaling down by minimum 40%, and the epidata that informed the easing of measures, we all knew that quarantine figures were low. We all knew that bed occupancy for treatment and community care centers was low. We all knew that quite a good number of districts had gone beyond several incubation periods without recording a case. The epidata at the time informed and advised the measures that we took at the time. Entirely, the entire dynamics actually changed with the festive season. So if the festive season has now changed the entire dynamics, and we see, for example, as you would see in the coordinator statement, Madam Minister, we now have the signed coordinator statement, which I have obliged the Director of Information to distribute. You will see from his statement that, and this is what validates for us strong community transmission. You would see, for example, that positivity from routine tests and departure passengers would account for over 80% of the positive cases. So for us, it validates strong community transmission. And if this is what the epidata is informing, and this is what the experts are advising, it is important that we take new measures as informed and advised by the second wave. So NACOVAC is never waiting to take an action. We take action based on the science, the epidemiology of the disease, and what scientific data is advising us. Once data advises, and once we allow science to lead, and we listen to experts like these ones in the room, those are the things that inform our decisions. So we are never reactive, we are always proactive, but we always would allow science to lead in all of this. What is the relationship between NACOVAC and the Ministry for Basic and Senior Secondary Education? We continue to have a very fine and enduring relationship with them. You would realize when they rolled out the new measures, when our kids were allowed to be in school for the purpose of taking the WASC and BECE examinations, NACOVAC had very strong partnership with the ministry, and we will continue to do so. Let's be honest, Sierra Leoneans, let's be honest that when it comes for the fight against COVID-19, there are challenges that define the landscape. This is not just for Sierra Leone, but all over the world. Even the best and the most equipped and highly advanced healthcare systems, we see how they have been severely affected. So we knew from day one, we knew from the onset that we are going to approach this fight, but never to be devoid of challenges. So even with respect to the measures governing the regime for our schools and tertiary institutions, we know and we concede to the fact that there are lapses, but we'll continue to surmount those challenges and address them as we go along. So the relationship is very fantastic between NACOVAC and the Ministry for Basic and Senior Education, and by extension the Ministry for Technical and Higher Education, if we are to consider the layer of tertiary institutions. For funds generated, as at now, we would say it's in the range of 22.3 billion for tests generated for funds generated from passenger tests, inbound and outbound passengers, and about 1 billion leones generated from fines. And I take the opportunity to assure all Sierra Leoneans that within the context of our duty to transparency and accountability, those funds are kept safe and sound, and indeed, for every penny that is put at the disposal of NACOVAC to engage the response, we will make sure that the duty we owe within the context of transparency and accountability, we discharge those duties to the best of our ability. Perhaps my colleagues may now wish to say a word or two on the issues.
I think you have really spoken to all the points. The only thing I want to say is the sequencing, the strain, whether it has anything to do with the British strain. From the result that we have, most of the transmission is from within, as stated by the coordinator. Notwithstanding, we are working with the Chinese military medical expert team to sequence the virus. That is, those that are coming from inbound passengers and also those virus that is actually isolated from people within the community, to see if there is any relationship between the virus that is spreading now and the one that is imported, that is identified in Britain.
Thank you. Madam Coordinator, I know Western area is the focus, so please feel free.
I don't think, I'm not sure I have very much to add, except to continue to appeal that we continue to observe the protocols, especially for those who are organizing public events, and for those of us who still want to meet socially. We should still try to observe the functions, because the numbers are going out. What goes out into the public usually we see by districts, and we see that Western area is getting a huge chunk of the positive cases. So we really need to step up and try to ensure that we cut down the numbers. We may not be able to cut them down completely, but we need to bring them down so that we feel safe. It's not easy. Somebody asked about the schools. A lot of social mobilization has been going on with the schools. We've been trying to provide them with masks and trying to see how we can assist in ensuring that they abide by these regulations. But when they can't, if they say they don't have masks, we try to supply them. But then I would also like to appeal to colleague journalists, if you get into a situation where you think you can help us with information so that we can go there and engage them, then that will also be good for us. So from my own point, I don't think there's very much that I need to add unless there are specific questions for me.
With the indulgence of Madam Minister, Coordinator has given us the broad outline of the measures for the new wave. Just so that we emphasize this point and will be as clear as possible. The restriction that we have for at this time, given the 2 weeks as announced by the Coordinator based on the directive from the Presidential Task Force, there will be movements in the Western area. There will be movements in the other parts of the country. What the measures are now restricting would be movement from Western area to other parts of the country, and movement from any other part of the country into the Western area. So just so that we are clear about this. For us, because we take primordial responsibility for saving lives, and it is important that our actions should speak to the evolving landscape, the decision is that the exemption for movement would only apply to essential goods and services. What we want to achieve at the end of the day is to severely limit and narrow the scope of movement. Because if we don't do that, under his pillar, Professor Brigadier Fodesa, technical pillar, for example, labs would be overwhelmed, surveillance may be overwhelmed. So when we say restricting movement, we mean restricting movement. What we will not be accommodating would be frivolous excuses, people who just want to get into the business of moving and circumventing the processes. So we have set the mechanism. So one of the things we are reverting to would be the electronic pass system to be issued to grant approval for any movement that we deem essential. And of course, if anybody wants to move from the Western area to any other part of the country, you would require a negative PCR result. So you do your test, and we get proof of negative result before you are allowed to move. Essentially, this new regime is to focus on the Western area. We know the hard work, Madam Coordinator and his colleague, SOB Davis for Rural, we know what they are grappling with on a daily basis. So all of us as Sierra Leoneans, the message is, the tone is, we have to pull together as one people, make sure we restrict movement as best as we can. And now, within this context of restricting movement, we will have an opportunity to do massive community testing. That is the message from the new measures. So we hope and pray that our friends in the room can help us be ambassadors to propagate this as best as we could, so that we generate the cooperation of all Sierra Leoneans.
Thank you very much.
The Deputy Minister of Information and Communication, Madam Abadi Gobe Kamara, gave updates about government activities, and also during the press conference, the National Coordinator for COVID-19 in the country, where the Minister of Defense, retired Brigadier Kelly Conte, also talk about the measures when NACOVAC don't put in place for 2 weeks. As they say, starting from Monday, when the 25th of January 2020, the lockdown they get partial lockdown in the western area, and also say they go activate the curfew where go start from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Mina Aissatou Smaisi say, until we meet again, I say, tata.